everyone, how's it going? During my Sonic journey and recently my journey into the Mega Man and Astro Boy franchise, I've also been doing some soul searching within my own journey on YouTube and how far I've come. I've also tried doing a number of different things in different ways to see how they would work, albeit with some mixed results where some things would work out really well and others not so much. But one thing has never changed, and that has been my excitement towards putting all of my time and effort into the videos that I've made. Each video is something that I've always been proud of and something that I've always had a genuine interest in doing. With 2025, there are a lot of other things that I would like to do as well outside of YouTube, which is why uploading as of late has been slower than before, or at least it feels like that for me. And one of those things that I would like to do in 2025 is to talk more about Mario. Now, Sonic has made a fan out of me, but Mario has and always will be in my heart. For me, Mario has always encapsulated what constitutes a video game and the infinite joy that these games can bring out of the hearts of many people. And it's not just nostalgia either. Mario has generally always been a go-to experience when no other game works for me, creating a bridge between something that is akin to a Zen garden to one that is challenging, rewarding, and also satisfying while admittedly sometimes frustrating to play. Take your pick out of the hat and you'll find a major score of fantastic titles in the Mario series, chock full of games that are revered and treasured still to this very day. Along the way though, you also get some Mario titles that either don't get as much of the spotlight or just have a brief period of it where it gets to bask in the sunlight, before being overshadowed by something much bigger and more impactful. For me, that game in the Mario Kart lineup is Mario Kart Super Circuit. Mario Kart Super Circuit was a Game Boy Advance release that acted as both a portable entry and a spiritual successor to the original Mario Kart, a game that could still be considered to be the best racing game that the SNES has to offer. Of course though, you'll have different camps yelling another answer to that, but it's a game that you can't go wrong with if you're ever interested in the SNES racing scene. The Game Boy Advance though is a console that I've come to love even more because of Mario Kart Super Circuit. I've played various titles on it like Pokemon Emerald and Fire Red, Mother 3, Metroid Zero Mission, Castlevania Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow, but I never really thought much of just how capable the console really was. These were just awesome games that I had a blast with years ago. Mario Kart Super Circuit is not only a pleasing game to look at, but it's also an example of just how simple and enjoyable sprite-based racing games can really be. My experience with the Mario Kart series in the past is admittedly limited, and I wouldn't even say that I'm that good at the games, but I've consistently had a blast of the titles that I did in fact grow up with, like say Mario Kart 64 and then later on Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. I revisited the original at a much later time and would stumble across Super Circuit when I started exploring the Game Boy Advance as a console again. During the time of Super Circuit, it had to wrestle with the existence of being a portable title, a title that would have to not only sell the game but also the console itself. With Mario Kart 64 and Double Dash, you only needed one console and a few controllers, which made those games more appealing for couch co-op sessions. And while multiplayer was a thing on the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance, it was nowhere near as intuitive, nor was it as cheap as just playing them on the console. And it was more than likely that those who were engaging with the Game Boy's multiplayer scene were more than likely battling and trading in Pokemon. But that's not to say that Super Circuit didn't have a multiplayer scene and that its existence is invalidated by the presence of its main console counterparts and their more accessible multiplayer. It's just merely a product of its time, a period in gaming where home consoles were still a domineering force in the gaming world and were the go-tos for split-screen couch co-op sessions. Mario Kart Super Circuit sends its flowers to the original game by showcasing better graphics and movement, and to top it all off, it even has the courses from the original game as well, that you can unlock by replaying a cup and collecting over 100 coins total. Mario Kart Super Circuit is the title that gets passed nowadays, and it's understandable as to why, especially when you have the later titles that just improved on the formula so much. The sliding and the drifting in this game is harder to do, the depth perception of the tracks is trickier compared to the 3D releases, and getting all 3 stars across all of the cups within each CC is akin to learning how to enjoy being flayed alive. In all seriousness though, Mario Kart Super Circuit is the kind of game where your enjoyment factor will be determined on your efforts of completion. And what do I mean by this exactly? Well, If you're just casually playing the game to decompress after a bad day, well, it's got you covered. You can't go wrong with this one in my opinion. But if your goal is to 100% the game, and that is to get all 3 stars in each cup, in each CC, then you're in for one of the most unforgiving experiences ever assembled in the history of Mario Kart. How the rank system works is this, to my knowledge. Picking certain characters gives you a boost of points. Collecting coins adds points. Triggering mini turbos after drifting, coming first, leading by 9 points, triggering mini drift at the start of the race, getting a good race time. You lose points by using items, not holding the gas button, holding the brake button, spinning out, using a star, bumping into other drivers, walls, getting saved by Lakitu, retrying a race, the list goes on. To even have a chance in hell of reaching those 3 stars at the end of the cup, you are expected to drive like Max Verstappen on a good day in the F1. And God have mercy on your soul if you decide to do all of this with Bowser, who is the slipperiest character in this game. If you've played other Mario Kart games, then each character will also have their own strengths and weaknesses. Characters like Peach, Yoshi, and Toad have great acceleration, can drive off-road without it affecting them too much, but can be hit a lot harder by other opponents when they're bumped into. Characters like Mario and Luigi are the most balanced of the bunch and are good starting points to play as in this game. With Donkey Kong, Wario, and Bowser, they have the opposite problems with lightweight races. They have great top speed, but they slide to the side much easier, making it even harder to perform better overall. Mind you, the stars that you get at the end of the cups only really matter if you're going out of your way to fully complete everything that this game has to offer. If not, then you can be as reckless as you want, you can abuse the items like it's no one's business, go for it. I've personally enjoyed the game much more doing it this way because it aligns with my views towards the Mario Kart series more than seeing it as a competitive field to master. However, in saying that, Super Circuit definitely does have its own skill ceiling that's similar to the original game. At first, it can be a struggle getting comfortable with the game's controls and the turning and the movement, as well as the underlying mechanics of Super Circuit, but like any other Mario Kart game, the more that you experiment and tinker with the gameplay, the more depth that you uncover and the more tricks and tips that you find along the way. For example, jumping with the R button will cancel out the sideways skidding when you turn or when you drift, and the velocity left over with it can also be cancelled by counter steering at the same time. Techniques like this are fantastic and are downright essential for getting a good handle on the heavyweight characters like Bowser or Donkey Kong and Wario. Timing your coin pickups during the race and scoping shortcuts is another part of the game's skill progression that you can delve more into if you wish. The game can be as casual or as competitive as you want it to be, which I've always felt was the game's biggest strength, where the game creates a unique harmony of being both competitive and fun. Some might say that the latest competitive games nowadays has this sort of feeling as well, depending on the person, but a lot of today's newer titles have different trends and targets in mind that doesn't necessarily make it accessible for everyone. Mario Kart, though, is accessible for everyone, and this is fundamentally tied to Nintendo's image, which has always been a family-friendly lineup of games with a polish and quality not seen in a lot of other games that are injected into their digital veins. Mario Kart Super Circuit shares the same spirit and in my opinion is one of the most underrated titles in the series that is worth revisiting. I love how vibrant the array of colors are in the characters and the stages. The sprite work is fantastic. The music is also fantastic, even for the GBA sound chip, which is sometimes hit and miss. And you also have the courses from both Super Circuit and the original Mario Kart, with returning soundtracks from that game with the GBA sound chip. And driving in this game, for me personally, feels a lot better overall than the original Super Mario Kart. Super Circuit is, for the most part, and in my opinion, a better version of Super Mario Kart, but unfortunately has the least accessible form of multiplayer in the series unless you count playing it on the Switch. But let's be honest, if you are playing a Mario Kart game on the Switch, it's more than likely you'll be playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But as a single-player racing game for the GBA, it's a really solid racing game, and if you're a fan of the original Mario Kart for the SNES, then this is basically more of that but on the go. Is Mario Kart Super Circuit the best in the series? Not even close, but it's definitely worth it in my book, and the game has made me appreciate the Game Boy Advance as a console even more. Also, as an added bonus, I'll also add a link for the ROM hack called Mario Kart R Advance, which is based on the original ROM hack for Super Mario Kart, a gem in a very limited pool of ROM hacks for an underrated gem of a kart racing game that also deserves its own flowers. Thanks for watching.